I'm Luke Whyte, a second-generation Jamaican-British property investor here in the UK, and you're listening to Property, Purpose and People, a podcast that is specifically and intentionally created and curated for the Windrush Generation and their descendants. On this episode of Property, Purpose and People, I will give you an introduction into how you can manage your own property or properties, so you never need to use my property company. Now, you may choose to use my company, but my intention here is to give you all the steps you need to successfully self-manage your own properties. I happily do this because all the best relationships I have with my landlords are the landlords who understand the process, what I do, because generally they have all done it themselves before. This has always led to an appreciation of the ethic and professionalism I use in property management because they are familiar with what it takes. In fact, I'll go a step further. If you are listening to this podcast, which of course you are if you are hearing this, and are considering utilizing my services, I would love to work with you, but I want to show you how you can self-manage your property first. Then, when you understand all it entails, you can decide if you want to do it yourself or if you want me to manage it. Now, whatever you decide, our community wins, which means we win. And that's the whole point of what I do. So listen, I've been managing either my own or others' properties for a combination of a decade. And over that decade, I've learned a lot. So here we go. Step one, the first question you need to ask yourself if you want to self-manage is, how do I do this legally? I start here because no one really wants to go to jail. And if you do want to go to jail, you have a bigger issue on your hand than who's going to manage your properties. Throughout the years, making money from property has become more and more regulated. This has led to costly mistakes for many landlords as they have not kept up with the latest legislation. The best place to start is the government website and also local council websites. They are a great free place to start to familiarize yourself with the rules around renting in your area. Once you have those general regulations, you may need to consider the suitability of your particular home and what exact rental strategy you are going to use. Now, depending on the local rules, depending on the requirements that the local council places on landlords, you may need to make amendments or adjustments to your property prior to renting it out. Now, the local council will also tell you if you need a license or even planning permission, as that is needed in some cases. These both usually come with a cost. So investigating this before you start is essential to avoid falling foul of the law. Now, once you've ticked all those boxes and you are confident that you are compliant, which is the main word here, compliant, with all relevant legislations, you can proceed forward. All right, next question. How much startup funds do you need to start self-managing? Many people do not consider this prior to becoming a landlord. They think that it's all about just raking in the dough. Of course, we're in the game to make money, not spend it. However, I can almost guarantee to do things legally, you will need to spend something up front. As well as the license fee you may need, you will need to invest something into the space or spaces you are providing, as I mentioned above. From something as small as a new bedspread to fit in a whole new ensuite, right the way through to a new lick of paint, the investment necessary is dependent on your ambitions and goals for your property. Nevertheless, some investment is necessary. Of course, you will do what you can do yourself. That's why you're self-managing after all. However, there are some things that are beyond your skill set or expertise, which will incur a cost. So how much startup funds do you really need? Next up is finding good tenants. You may have heard it said that a bad tenant is worse than no tenant, and I cannot agree with this point enough. Bad tenants are an absolute nightmare, wrapped in a headache, doused in misery. So you need to have a robust tenancy process to give yourself the best chance of securing reliable, decent, rent-paying tenants. Tenants who understand their rent is a priority and not a flipping option. This process can be split into a few sections. Guys, I'm giving you the goodness in this episode. If you haven't realized by now, I'm laying it out for you so that you can do this. So the least you can do, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, or your phone, and take notes. All right, so tenants in your property. Now, this process can be split into a few sections. The first one is marketing your property. You need to think about how you actually find tenants. The world of marketing has changed over the last few years, with much of the process moving to online. Notices in sweet shops and word of mouth still definitely work, but social media sites such as Instagram and TikTok, as well as dedicated platforms like Spearroom and Rightmove, are extremely helpful in finding tenants. Once people begin to respond and request viewings, you are ready to proceed. All right, next step, pre-tenancy. So this is once people have started to engage with your marketing. This is all about the engagement that you have with the tenant prior to them even viewing the property, whether it's multiple tenants or a family who are looking to take on your property. Are they honest and open in their communication with you, or are they closed off and guarded? Do you always get the feeling that they're hiding something? When you ask them about their current accommodation situation, does their answer still not give you confidence? Are they kind of vague? You can clearly tell that they're avoiding the subject. What about their work situation? Are they working, not working, job seeking? Like, what's going on? Are their circumstances set to change in the near future? You also want to assess their readiness to move. Asking questions like, when does your current tenancy run out? When are you looking to move? And are you able to comfortably afford the moving in costs will help to eliminate unsuitable applicants. Next up is the viewing. Now, I like to bunch my viewings together so that it creates a sense of urgency and also a sense of demand. People like things that other people have. So when they see somebody else is interested in the room, it piques their interest even more. Now, this is the first time you have met the potential tenant in person. And here you can ask some of the initial questions you previously asked. So the same questions you asked while you were setting up the viewing, but you're listening carefully to see if there's any changes to the story. Are they saying they're now a CEO of a Fortune 500 company when previously they were job seeking? Like, ask for further elaboration where you're not sure. If you're dealing with someone who seems to be a good fit, the viewing is the opportunity to secure them. Be prepared. Be prepared to really showcase the property in its best light. Ensure the room or the property is clean and tidy, beds made, curtains open, windows cracked to allow fresh air in, especially if the property already has some tenants in. By the end of the viewing, the goal is to have a definitive answer, preferably a yes, but I know is just as valuable. Be sure to make the potential tenant aware of the next steps as they leave the viewing. Following the viewing, this is just as important as before the viewing. You need to follow up expeditiously, ideally with a tenant information form. This is where they'll put all their details, like their previous address, the employee, their employer, all of that stuff. You can also ask for things like bank statements. This is just to ensure that they have the funds necessary and they weren't just gassing you up in the interview. And last up is referencing. You want to reference the tenants. Now, there are different services you can use for this, but referencing is advisable. It really can help to identify any red flags. With all that information, you are equipped to make an informed decision on which applicant you would like to proceed with. So that is, in a nutshell, the beginning of the tenant managing process. Throughout the tenancy, you will continue to communicate with the tenant as long as they're with you. Largely, a lot of the communication will mainly be if there's some type of issue. So hopefully that is few and far between. In addition, at least every 3 months, you will have a conversation because you're going to let them know that you'll be inspecting the property. And the inspection is key to ensure that your property is being looked after well. Which leads us nicely to the next area of self-management, and that is maintenance and repairs. It's 3 a.m. in the morning. My phone rings. I ignore it. After all, it's bloody 3 a.m. I turn to feel the warmth of my queen. Bzz. The phone rings again. Who in the hell dare rouse me from my slumber? I put it on silent. It vibrates again. My wife whispers, answer it, it must be important. Hello. Luke, yes. Luke, there's water leaking through the ceiling and I can't stop it. It's tripped the electric. My bed is soaked. What happened, I ask. I don't know. It's the damp tenant upstairs. My stuff is getting ruined. Hold the line. I think it's the tenant calling me. Hold on. Hello? Hi. I broke the sink. What? I broke the sink. Oh yeah, I heard. No, my girlfriend accidentally broke it. Well, she sat on it whilst... Too much information. You need to switch the water off. There's pipes under the sink. You got a screwdriver? Yeah. You should be able to turn the water off at the valve. Is it working? No. Try again. Damn. With every second that passes, I see money leaving my pocket. Okay, no worries. Head downstairs, under the panel, by the back door, is the stopcock. Keep turning it, and eventually it will turn off. I'm turning. Turn it. Nothing's happening. Keep turning. Nothing's happening. Keep turning. No. Okay, cool. Yeah, it stopped. All right, great. I'm on my way. Thank God this was an anomaly. This has only happened once in the last 10 years. Of course, there have been other leaks to be sure, but not of this magnitude or that I've had to leave my home at 3 a.m. to deal with. You see, good maintenance is dealing with an issue in a timely and expeditious manner. Great maintenance is dealing with issues before they arise. Write that down. I'm going to repeat that. Write that down. Good maintenance is dealing with issues in a timely manner. Great maintenance is dealing with issues before they arise. There will be circumstances like this that may happen from time to time, but generally issues tend to present themselves before in a smaller, more incremental way. It starts as a slight annoyance, but left unattended can become a full-scale catastrophe. Great maintenance is absolutely essential and critical, and a pivotal part of successfully managing your properties. And lastly, for now, the fun part, rent collection. Having a smooth and automated system for collecting rent is absolutely essential. Assuring that the tenancy agreement clearly states how and when the rent is to be collected and the consequences for non-adherence is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, paramount. Following up on the consequences in the contract is absolutely non-negotiable. In fact, if you don't, you're going to pay the price. We are, of course, running a business, and the rent is the lifeblood of any rent-based business. Collecting the rent on time without fail is essential. Of course, we know that situations and circumstances can change, but tenants need to know that they are expected to meet their obligations regardless. And there is a process and procedure that kicks into effect if there are any issues, and this must be followed. So those are the 4 major pillars of self-management: compliance, tenanting, property management, and rent collection. If you obsess about these, get them right, your self-management journey will be a lot smoother. Get these wrong, drop the ball, or in other words, fumble the bag, and you will find yourself in a world of pain. There is a lot more that could be said, but that's an introduction. And honestly, the best way to learn is by doing. Circumstances and situations will arise as you try that will be invaluable in your journey. Now, if you have any specific questions about a specific area, you can book a consultation with me or drop me an email at luke@lukewhyte.com. That's luke@lukewhyte.com. Or drop me a DM on my socials. And my social handle is Luke, CRWHYTE. So that was all about the how of self-management. After the break, we're going to look at the why and if self-management is for you. Guys, thank you so much for listening to the episode so far. It's me, Luke, obviously. Just a quick one to say this episode is sponsored by me. So listen, if you want any help with your property, if you want any advice, shoot me an email, luke@lukewhyte.com. That's LUKE at LUKEWHYTE.com. We can get it cracking. And that's about it, really. On with the show. Peace. Here are the advantages of self-management should you choose to go down that route. Number one, it can be cost saving. As you're not paying any property management fees, then a bigger proportion of the rent, of course, is coming to you. This in itself seems like a major reason to self-manage, and probably in most cases, this is why most people start on their self-management journey. Number two, you have full control of the decisions that are being made around your property and everything to do with your property. Now, depending on your personality type, this may be great or it may be daunting, but either way, in many cases, it's an advantage of self-managing. Three, you have a direct tenant relationship. This can help you build trust and rapport with the tenants and can help them feel more comfortable in your property because they know they have a direct line to the landlord. Here are some challenges of self-management that you need to consider. Number one, it can be very time consuming. Handling the day-to-day operations, emergencies, and tenant communication could eat up more time than you can imagine, especially if you don't have a smooth system in place for dealing with these things as they arise. You could spend your time spinning your wheels. Number two, understanding and keeping on top of complex legal requirements. From the laws that are constantly changing around what landlords have to do, from compliancy issues, liability risks, insurances, licenses, there is a lot to not only put in place, but to keep on top of. And this can be a challenge to self-management. Number three, limited resources. It's you, trying to manage repairs, trying to market vacancies, doing the tenant screening, and often without professional tools. So this again is a challenge to your self-management journey. But as I said before, don't take my word for it. I really do think it's a good idea for you to try to see how possible it is for you to do it on your own steam. And then you're in a better position to decide if you want a professional property management company, one like mine. So what is professional property management? Well, you're delegating all of the responsibilities of your property to a management company. The advantages of this are numerous. One, it gives you complete time freedom. Managers handle tenant communications, all of the maintenance issues, any emergencies, any phone calls in the midnight hour. We said earlier that one of the advantages of self-managing is that the tenants have a direct line to you. But this is also a disadvantage of self-managing because believe you me, they will call you when they think it's an emergency. And one of the things I've learned in my management journey is that you have to train your tenants on what an emergency truly is. An emergency is not, there's a mouse in their room. Believe I've been called for a mouse in their room. I know I went on an inspection of a property once and was told that there was a spider in their room and they thought about calling me the previous night to deal with the spider, which I found absolutely hilarious. A blown bulb. A blown bulb is not an emergency, but a blown bulb could wake you up in the middle of the night if you are self-managing. And it's not just about it being in the middle of the night. It's the fact that your holidays, your time away could be disturbed. Your time with your children, the time with your family. You're basically continuously on the clock. And that's why instead of you being on the clock, you have, of course, delegated to a professional property management company who can be on the clock for you. Another advantage, the expertise. You see, as a property management company, we have access to industry knowledge. We have vetted our vendors and we are legally compliant and we're fully aware of how to keep you compliant. And should there be any issues or any irregularities, you are protected by the fact that you have a management contract with the company. This is both a relief and also a safety net for you as you proceed in your management journey and as you proceed in renting out your property. There's also a higher tenant retention rate. Professionals know how to keep tenants satisfied and how to keep them in properties for a longer period of time. And if it's a property management company like mine, we offer guaranteed rent to our landlords, which means regardless of the situation with a tenant, regardless of the turnover of tenants, the agreed rent that you have signed with a company like mine ensures that you can receive that rent as promised. This allows you to make financial plans for the future. This allows you to plan your holidays, plan your getaways, plan how you're going to use those funds, rather than the up and down nature of the income that can happen depending on the changing circumstances of the various tenants or the single tenant, depending how you're renting out your property. One of the drawbacks that many landlords have to deal with is a loss of direct oversight. Now, some owners may feel detached from their properties. Again, you have to consider the fact that when you are utilizing a property for rental purposes, for the income it can produce, you have to be less emotional towards it and less tied to it. And if you self-managing, and oftentimes many people choose to self-manage because they haven't really separated themselves from the property is just so close to their heart. And so they want to make sure everyone is putting the toilet seat down and everyone is switching on the light and everyone is dusting off their shoes when they step into the house. And that type of emotional pull to the property is what could really affect how profitable and how successful your rental business is. And so while the loss of direct oversight might be a downside for you, it's also a massive bonus, as the property can just go and do what it needs to do without you meddling in each and every part of it. Another drawback could be monthly fees and possible upcharges on services. Now, a company like mine, we don't do that, but depending who you use, they may charge you a fee regardless of the performance of the property. Of course, with our management company, you don't pay a monthly fee. In fact, we pay you every month the guaranteed rent. Win-win. So here are the key factors to help you decide whether using a property management company like mine is right for you, or if self-management is the way to go. Number one, your time and your availability. Can you commit to being available for tenancy emergencies or the property's needs? Are you in a situation where you can make time? Are you in a situation where you're responsible for your own diary? Or do you have responsibilities and a boss and a situation that means that you may have to tell a tenant in an emergency that you'll be there within 24 hours? That could be a real problem if a real emergency occurs. So you have to consider carefully, what is your time and what is your availability? Number two, what is your knowledge of laws and compliance? Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? No. Do you understand the local landlord-tenant laws? Do you understand the safety requirements, the tax implications? Like, do you understand all of the compliance-related issues? Or are you willing to learn about that? Number three, what is your portfolio size and what is the complexity? Like, are you managing one property? Do you have numerous properties? Even if you have one property now, do you have dreams of growing your portfolio? Are they high maintenance properties? So are they HMOs, meaning house of multiple occupancies, where one house could have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 different tenants? Or is it just one property with one family with one tenancy that you're managing? The complexity of your portfolio and the portfolio size is something to really consider. And lastly, what are your long-term goals? Are you looking for passive income, or do you enjoy the hands-on nature of personally managing the properties? Do you want to be able to go on holiday and be away and be with friends and be partying and doing whatever you want, and just every now and then hearing ka-ching and you look down on your Apple Watch or your phone or your bank account and you just see money coming in with you having to do very, very little? What are your long-term goals? And that's it, friends. A lot of information there. This episode has been jam-packed with information, but I really want you to have as much information as possible before you decide to use my property management company. I want you to decide, is it something you can do for yourself? Is it something you want to do for yourself? Because just because you can do something yourself, that still doesn't mean you should. Remember, I always like to say that you have two assets in life, two true assets in life: time and money. Now, if you are going to self-manage, it's going to take you more time, but you may feel that you're keeping more money in your pocket as a result of self-managing. However, if you have a property management company, you may feel that you're losing out on some income, but you have all your time back. What is more valuable? I saw this amazing video. It was probably on Instagram, but it might have been on YouTube. And it was talking about just how important time is. It was talking about this idea that he could prove, this individual said he could prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that time was more important than money. He said, if I could give you £1 million right now, but you die tomorrow, do you want it? Or if you would never be a millionaire, but you could have guaranteed 100 years to live, like what would you pick? And it became very clear in that analogy, if I communicate it correctly, that time is infinitely more important than money. Time is such a true asset. In fact, if you are fortunate enough to be able to use your money to buy yourself more time, or to at least buy yourself more time freedom, that is the win. So don't be so greedy, I say. Don't be so insistent on squeezing every single penny out of your property and keeping it all for yourself, when all you're going to do is exchange a lot of time, a lot of heartache, and a lot of pain for that. Why not just give me all the pain, all the headaches, and the heartache, while you enjoy yourself, sunning yourself in the Caribbean? And that is not something that I plucked out of thin air. I have a number of landlords who literally do not live in this country, and they get to enjoy the sea, the sand, the sangria, whilst knowing that their properties are being maintained and taken care of. Because, as I hope I've communicated by now, this is more than property. This is about my contribution to the community. This is what I am able to do to assist in the wealth preservation and the asset building activities of the community. Time is infinitely more important than money, and because of that, don't chase the pounds and give up all your time. It's not worth it. Thank you for listening to another episode of Property, Purpose and People. You've literally taken your time to spend it with me, and I appreciate it. Oh, and I tell you what, drop a little flag that you represent down in the comment section, and I'll be sure to shout you out on the next episode. And until next time, keep it real, my people. Me love you like cooked food, and I'll see you on the next episode. Peace.